Congressman Tom Garrett shot down Politico's report that he's not running for re-election today. He made it actually very clear that he will run to retain his seat in the 5th District.
ABC 13's Chris Hoffman joins us with Garrett's message today.
I've never lost, not going to start this year.
Bold words coming from the Republican from the 5th District during a Facebook Live today after a report in Politico came out saying he wasn't running for re-election. He discussed possible election decisions with his family yesterday, one of which was not running.
These thoughts have crossed everybody's mind who's here, if they're here for the right reasons.
Representative Garrett says his first term is a lot of learning about how bureaucracy works, a process he's not always happy with.
We've got legislation that we feel like would pass with a bipartisan vote that won't get a floor vote. So I'm frustrated with that, but I'm not going to criticize people.
Today, he also addressed questions about his chief of staff, Jimmy Cady, who left just months before the midterm elections. Congressman Garrett says he did not fire him.
He's a fine man. It's been a pleasure to be his friend and to work with him. And sometimes in life, you decide to do different things.
Right now, when it comes to raising campaign money, his opposition, Democrat Leslie Cockburn, is ahead of him. According to the federal campaign contribution site, opensecrets.org, Cockburn raised more than $715,000 so far. Representative Garrett, only about $432,000. He says campaign financing had no impact on his decision to run again.
I don't like fundraising very much. We've turned a corner. We're doing extraordinarily well. We're going to be fine.
Politico is reporting that ex-aides of 5th District Congressman Tom Garrett made them his servants. The article in Politico claims that Garrett made staffers do things like pick up groceries and clothes, clean up after the dog, and drive his daughters around. Politico reports that they spoke with 4 former aides for this story. We reached out to the congressman to ask him about these claims. Garrett's spokesperson said, quote, "We have no further comment at this point."
Congressman Tom Garrett has changed his mind and is now saying he's not running for re-election. That's according to the Washington Post. They say Garrett announced that he is struggling with alcoholism and wants to focus on recovery and his family.
Last week, you might remember, Garrett held a news conference to announce that he would run for re-election in November. ABC 13 is working right now to get you more information. Stay with us for updates. We begin tonight with more on the news we first brought you tonight at 6. 5th District Representative Tom Garrett has announced he is an alcoholic and won't seek re-election. Garrett announced a week ago he would be running for re-election despite Chief of Staff Jimmy Cady leaving office. Garrett issued a video on this move saying it's the hardest statement he's ever made publicly. But there is one area where he says he hasn't been honest.
The tragedy is that any person, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, who's known me for any period of time and has any integrity, knows 2 things. I am a good man, and I'm an alcoholic.
Garrett's district includes Henry, Pittsylvania, Campbell, Appomattox, and Halifax counties. He was elected in 2016 after Representative Robert Hurt retired. A lot has happened in the last 2 months for 5th District Congressman Tom Garrett when he surprised the country with the announcement that he was an alcoholic and would not be running for re-election. He had just announced he would run. I landed an exclusive interview with the congressman about how it all unfolded, and he was very candid about his battle and his choices.
It's 1 month and 19 days.
So
right? Yeah. I mean, that's a big deal for me.
Congressman Tom Garrett has been taking it one day at a time since revealing his battle with alcoholism, which came to light in an odd string of events.
And with that, I will tell you that there is no way in heck that I'm not going to be back here in 2019 as a member of the Congress representing the 5th District of Virginia because too darn much is at stake.
That was May 24th when Garrett held a press conference to counter rumors that he was not going to run for re-election. Then, just 4 days later, he sent out a recorded announcement that he'd changed his mind.
The tragedy is that any person, Republican, Democrat, or Independent, who's known me for any period of time and has any integrity, knows 2 things. I am a good man, and I'm an alcoholic.
We'd contemplated not seeking re-election. But I think about 4 hours after we said we were seeking re-election, just a lot of things started happening that caused me to step back and rethink my rethinking.
Namely, he says, an article in Politico where 4 anonymous staffers claimed he made them run personal errands and drive his daughters around, among other things.
And I have asked people to drive 6 tenths of a mile in my car to my apartment and grab me a shirt because I spilled mustard on mine. That did happen. I think 3 times in 18 months. And literally, here are my car keys. Can you please grab me a belt? I got a committee meeting. My dumb behind came in with that one. So 3 times in 18 months. If that's abusive, then I'm guilty. But like chauffeur my daughters, never happened, not once ever.
He says that article hit him in the gut and caused him to look deep inside himself.
Rock bottom was, what is wrong with you, Garrett? What could they say that if they said it, you wouldn't be able to say that's bullcrap? And the answer is he's an alcoholic.
I asked him what his rock bottom was with alcohol. He didn't really have one.
There was no like back of a police car moment. There was no like, I can't believe I did something horrible, to my wife or whatever. I was a lot of missed soccer games, a lot of missed church, a lot of victories that were hollow because the next day you were hungover or what have you.
Garrett says he didn't sneak drinks or even drink every day. He says he has never gotten drunk on the job. Instead, he planned his drinking, scheduling his life around when he could.
So I wasn't missing votes, but what I was missing was soccer games. What I was missing was, if my daughter was in a play and they had a Friday, Saturday show and then a matinee on Sunday, I might get to one and then say, hey, I saw your play, it was great, and then use that as an excuse because I was alone.
Garrett says he's known he's had a problem for years.
Oh gosh, my father said something to me before I was 21 years old.
He's gone to meetings in the past, even quit drinking for a stretch, but that was all in secret. Now that it's out in the open, he says he's getting all kinds of support and feels moving on was the best decision.
It's cathartic, it's liberating. I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm absolutely scared because I have no idea what I'm doing next year, but that's okay.
I checked with Garrett again today, and as of today, he tells me he is now 1 month and 30 days sober. So what is next? And will it be hard to say goodbye to Capitol Hill? You might be surprised at what he has to say about that. Hear more from my interview with the congressman tonight at 11.
I am a good man, and I'm an alcoholic.
That was Congressman Garrett back in May. So what is next for the 5th District Congressman after he announced that he is an alcoholic and won't seek re-election? I landed an exclusive interview with him and recently spent several hours following him through his whirlwind day. He was quite candid about his feelings about Washington politics and his fear of the unknown.
I'm doing well. I just got to go do some votes here shortly.
First, a quick appearance at a lunch with foreign ambassadors. Then a sprint to the Capitol to cast a vote, but not before giving some foreign tourists an impromptu tour.
Yeah, come on. I take a great deal of joy in giving people the opportunity to see things that I think are special that they might not have otherwise.
Then off to a hearing on tuberculosis in South Africa in his Foreign Affairs Subcommittee.
3 generations ago, my father's mother had tuberculosis.
Congressman Tom Garrett has gotten to know the layout of Capitol Hill quite well. He loves its rich history. He doesn't love the politics.
There are a lot of things that aren't phrased as threats, but that are threats. Like, well, it's going to be hard for us to help you be on such and such committee if you don't vote a certain way on a certain bill. That's not how this is supposed to work.
So when he was making his decision whether to run for re-election, alcoholism wasn't the only reason he decided against it.
I've got a laundry list in my head. There could be a book forthcoming for all I know about what we should be doing differently.
He's frustrated by his inability as an individual to affect real change. Frustrated by the partisan bickering, and frustrated about being pulled in so many different directions.
We've gone so far beyond what the enumerated powers delegated in Article 1 were that I've got 1,000 different issues. So we might do K-12 ed, higher ed, national security, intelligence, Russian meddling, all in a 3 or 4 hour span.
But there is one thing he is extremely proud of. Rescuing 9 refugees from Sudan last September, 2 of them pastors imprisoned for helping feed their neighbors, something he did outside of Congress.
When we went to Khartoum to pull the refugees out of the Sudan, that was unofficial because Congress wouldn't let me go. So I had to raise private money and sort of do that myself.
Now he sees an opportunity to be able to focus on this type of work.
But now if I want to do, global human rights, if I want to do religious freedom and sort of basic fundamental human rights as it relates to shaping policy,
I can do that all the time.
Yeah. Congressman Garrett doesn't have a concrete plan yet for his future. He still has 4 more months left in office. He's a little scared of the unknown, but confident he'll come out on top.
Look, many times have I failed, never have I been a failure. So we're going to be okay. I just don't know how or what.
Garrett says he could always go back to being a lawyer in Central Virginia, and he'd be fine with that. He didn't roll out ever running for office again, but at least right now he says he's ready to finish his term and move on to a new chapter and work on healing with his family.
Weighing in on Charlottesville, Congressman Tom Garrett says Russian meddling helped stir the pot during last year's Charlottesville protests.
ABC 13's Valencia Jones spoke with him over the phone and joins us with what he says you need to know.
Garrett represents the 5th Congressional District, including Charlottesville. He says he wants people to know how some Russians had a hand in the violence that took place there a year ago. Congressman Tom Garrett says some disturbing information came out of a House briefing with the FBI on Russian interference. He says the findings confirmed Russia used the internet and social media to stir up discord in Charlottesville before and during the violent protests last year. Garrett also said the Russian interference is not about changing any election results, but he said, quote, "It's about inflaming rage, passion, and hatred from the fringes of our society to pit Americans against Americans."
Essentially giving a megaphone to the most hateful fringe elements to make Americans not trust their government, not trust the political parties, not trust the system, and not trust each other.
As their goal is to undercut people's confidence in each other and their own government. He also says it's important for folks on both sides of the aisle to have civil discussions and work together as part of the solution. In the Lynchburg studio, Valencia Jones, ABC 13 News.
3 times in 18 months. If that's abusive, then I'm guilty. But like chauffeur my daughters never happened, not once ever.
That was Congressman Tom Garrett in July talking about allegations that he acted unethically in office. Now an investigation by the Office of Congressional Ethics has concluded that Garrett requested personal errands and unofficial work from his staffers.
He says that's not the case and questions the validity of those who came forward with that information. ABC 13's Karen Pinto spoke with Garrett today.
Congressman Tom Garrett says an anonymously sourced Politico article that came out in May is the genesis of the current investigation. I spoke with him via FaceTime.
There was no investigation nor story until I fired my chief of staff and then said I was still running. And then within 4 hours of me saying I was still running, there's an investigation.
The Office of Congressional Ethics did an investigation. It found that former staffers say Garrett and his wife made his staff do personal errands, like taking his dog on walks.
Did people walk the dog? Sure, they used to argue over who got to walk the dog.
Also cited trips to Costco.
Did anybody ever go to Costco? Yes. Did they purchase supplies for the office with money out of my pocket? Yes. So I don't think there's anything unethical about buying sodas and coffee for the staff and having a staffer help my wife, who was 8 months pregnant, carry it.
In documents done by Garrett's lawyers, it says Garrett fired communications director Matt Misson after learning he was using a false name and had past criminal charges, submitted false reimbursements, and didn't make him aware of media requests for information or interviews. I did reach out to the Office of Congressional Ethics, but have not heard back. For now, Garrett says he's keeping everything in perspective.
I've been extraordinarily blessed, and there are a lot of miles left on the odometer. I am proud of running for office, looking people in the eyes, and then doing the best I can to do what I said I was going to do.
So what could this mean for Garrett? Now the Committee on Ethics has to review it. If Garrett was found guilty of this, the worst punishment he could face would be expulsion from Congress. But his term is up in less than a month. Live in Lynchburg Newsroom, Karen Pinto, ABC 13 News.